name is Coleman. I'm with Grillin and Chillin with Coleman, and today we're out at Bluebonnet Meat Company. It's real close to my house here in North Texas, and this is where I get a lot of my meat for the cooks that I use on my Facebook page and on my YouTube channel. So we're here today with the owner and proprietor. His name is Ben, and Ben's the owner of Bluebonnet Meat Company. And I came in today because I'm needing a couple baby back ribs for my next video that I'm going to be putting out probably next week. So I came in to Ben and I said, Ben, I need some help picking out some great baby back ribs. You're the expert. Why don't you share with me the information that you know? So everybody, this is Ben.
How y'all doing?
Hi, Ben. So I get a lot of questions about ribs, about what's the difference between baby back ribs and St. Louis ribs, and which are better for grilling, and which one should I try? So if you could, maybe walk us through the difference between the different styles of ribs.
Sure. So it's pretty straightforward. Baby back ribs are going to be the ribs that are located on the exterior of the loin, like where the pork chops come from. So they're going to, once you have that loin, come back along and pull all those bones out, and they end up with a boneless loin. That's how you get your boneless pork chops. And all those bones will then be chimed with a saw to make a smaller rack of ribs. We call them the baby back ribs, baby because they're a little bit smaller, and they're usually very tender because they're up there against that loin, which doesn't do a lot of moving.
Now, for those of you, the loin runs right along the spine on the
Backbone of the
inside.
animal.
So the baby backs are going to be right up next to the spine is where they're located.
And so the rule of thumb, too, on that is any animal that you're going to eat, the farther away from the ground the piece of meat is, and the less work that the piece does overall in the animal, the more tender it will be.
Perfect.
Meaning why all those things are so tender. And so your St. Louis style then are going to be the same place that the bacon comes from, which is over your belly, over your ribs, and they just come along and they pull those ribs off of that, take the belly and make bacon, and then you're left with those St. Louis style ribs. But St. Louis implies a little other trimming is going to happen as well.
Okay. So can you show us a couple of examples of either one, and we'll come a little closer to the camera.
So this is
Let's walk in a little bit closer.
This is a real good example of a baby back rib. You can see it's kind of a smaller rib. You can imagine that those pork chops just laying up over the top of that right there. This fatter end is closer to the shoulder. It's the ribeye end, which leads then into this wider end where they would have the short loin where your T-bones would start coming from if you were pulling up an animal. It's got a nice short rack. Like I said, it's just that part that lays up underneath the rib. So you're not going to find a giant a rack of baby backs. If you do, they probably mislabeled it. It's not baby backs.
Okay.
So the larger portion then is our St. Louis style, which this is more like half of the whole rib of the pig. St. Louis style implies that it's been trimmed. So normally the rib comes down, and there's cartilage that runs along the bottom of this. You can kind of see it here.
That's like the breastbone.
The breastbone. Well, that's not that great to eat, so we need to pull all that off of there, take that away, and you're left with a much more square, easy to manage set of ribs. Nice bit of flexibility to them.
So flavor-wise, which would you prefer, the baby backs or the St. Louis style?
So, in my opinion, there's no bad rib. They're both delicious. I prefer doing the St. Louis style just because there's more to eat. And I'm a big man. I like my ribs. So these are much better portioning out. You might choose to use baby backs if you were going to do an appetizer or just an amuse-bouche or something to that nature.
Okay, well, perfect. So when I'm choosing either St. Louis or baby backs,
Sure.
what do I look for? If I'm in the grocery store or I come here to see you, what do I look for on a set of ribs?
Well, the first
And I
thing,
say, yeah, that's the one I want right there.
you're going to want to make sure you can see the pink, right? So if you're seeing nothing but white, that means it's all fat, and that's not necessarily a bad thing if you like fat, but some people really prefer a little more meat with their product. So what we've got here is a really nice blending of pink and white. We can see that white rolling around in there, but it's not everywhere, you know. So I think that's the first thing you want to look for. One of the other kickers is, so baby backs don't have a film over them. You almost never have something to peel off. They'll just cook straight away.
Talk about the membrane on the
The
back?
membrane on the back.
Okay.
But whereas like on these St. Louis style, you can just kind of see it. It's really barely there. But you want to take a paper towel, peel those off once you get that to the house. It makes a much better eating experience, and that seasoning will adhere better to the meat that way.
And on my video coming up next week on the baby backs, I'll show you how to pull that membrane off. Well, perfect. couple other questions that came in about
Sure.
what is a good safe temp that you want to cook the ribs to?
So the government will tell you 145 is the best temperature. You want to make sure your pork is done by at least 145.
Okay.
I've actually found in pork ribs that I will smoke them at 225 on the smoker for 4.5 to 5 hours.
Okay.
You really want to see the meat start to peel back off the bone about 1/4 of an inch, and that's how you'll know it's there.
Okay.
Now it'll start to peel a little before you reach that time, but you want to go ahead and finish out your time. I don't usually cook to the point where they're falling off of the bone.
Okay.
In my opinion, that's a little overdone, and it's a little more difficult to eat.
Okay. And see, on the other hand, my wife and I, we like ours falling out.
Sure.
We like it where you can pull that bone right
Pull
out.
and slide it right out.
And that's really just not a temperature. That's just an amount of time that we're cooking.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Yeah, I find I'm more of a handle guy. I need that handle to really dig into that bad boy.
Perfect. Now, I appreciate you telling us a lot
Sure.
about ribs.
Of course.
If there's any more questions, if you have anything posted, you can post the question. But here at Bluebonnet Meat, this is where, if you guys watch my tri-tip video on Wagyu, this is where I got it. This is where I got that beef. And you'll notice the meat case behind us, that's just half of it. The other half is on this side. So if you're looking for some great meat in the area, come by and see Ben at Bluebonnet Meat Company. They've got a great selection. They know exactly what they're talking about, and they'll make sure that you got exactly what you need. They also have, you can't see it behind the camera there, but they got a great selection of rubs and spices and barbecue items over here, as well as some liquids and some barbecue sauces and those kind of things. So I appreciate you all joining me today here on Grillin and Chillin with Coleman. My name is Coleman. I'm here with Ben with Bluebonnet Meat Company. Hey, y'all go grill something.